we will call the
Before we get.
September 21st, 2023 Merrill Enrichment Center Committee meeting to order. If we could go around and do introductions, who's here?
Nathan Meyer, 3rd District Alderman.
Tammy Marachek.
Sharon Anderson.
Sharon Harvey.
Jay Telesti.
Gene Biddle.
And Laura Bertignoli.
Excellent.
Thanks for being here. Okay, following the agenda, number 2, consent items. Did everyone have a chance to review the August 23 meeting minutes?
Yes.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And did we have a couple folks that looked at the vouchers?
I did motion to approve the vouchers.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion or questions? Okay.
My questions answered.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, public comment. I don't think we have anyone joining us on the phone at this
No,
point.
no, nobody on the phone right now.
Anyone have
Anybody
any?
heard anything or any buzz around town on public comment?
Okay. Operations, open house.
Okay, so I believe we are all set for our open house. Well, Nathan's question on budget was how often do we buy 1,000 mints? So it's a good question.
Well, there were a few other things. I mean, $185.
Yeah, yeah.
You'd be like, how often are we doing that?
Right, and it is, of course, you know, we have mints all the time at the front desk for our participants, but the 2 bulk purchases, or the 1 bulk purchase we do is for our Christmas outreach. Well, now we're having an open house, and true to who we are, we're stuffing the bags with some mints and Andy's mints, because those are people's favorites. So in addition to the stress ball that we got with our logo on it, and the notebook, the pen, so those things will be in there also. So we had to, and we bought the little bags, the green bags for that. So those were a little extra. I'm keeping them separate on a line item, so at the end of our open house, we can see the total amount that we spent, which will, so the food and everything, of course, isn't on there yet because that's a more last minute. So we're all ready to go. We're excited.
How many people were you preparing with the bags?
50.
50 people.
Yes, we're doing 50, and when they're gone, they're gone. So we really don't know what to expect, and I do not want to have a ton of leftover. If we do have leftover, then we definitely can use them in other ways. But I didn't want to have too many. So yeah, we'll start with the 50 and go from there. It's really hard without people calling in. There's been some buzz. People are like, oh, we're excited to see that, but without them registering for it, it's really hard to know how much to buy and spend. Even with food, I'm gonna keep it minimal with food and
What
drink.
are we serving for food?
Pardon?
I'm always curious about what am I coming to eat?
Well,
I'm about to say, Gene's worried about supper
Yes,
today.
yeah, so I think in our brainstorming session, we talked about, sandwiches cut in thirds, but I was just telling Sharon too, I'm hesitant about that. The meats and cheeses and stuff, if they're sitting out and they don't go, then we throw them out. So still deciding on maybe just maybe some cheese and crackers and fruit and that stuff, more of an appetizer type of a thing, not a meal. Yeah, I'm still weighing that portion of it. But we'll have drinks and, the cheesecakes, the little cheesecake bites that go over wonderful all the time, because those are frozen. So if we need to take more out, we can take more out, only a little bit, and utilize them, and then still, have them and they won't waste. So yeah, we're still kind of planning that. I do not think I will have it catered. I think that's too expensive. So I think the girls and I can do them ourselves if we do sandwiches or, whatever we choose to do. So.
Well, if you need help with that, I think some of us would be willing.
Oh yeah, and I'm grateful for that. And so we'll reach out if we do need some extra hands on deck to prepare for that.
Some of us aren't too capable, but as long as it's food.
we can make
I
a
eat more
sandwich.
than I pick.
We can make a sandwich. No, that would be nice. That would be great. And I would, just talking about the open house, I would hope that all of you can be present a little bit too, so people can meet the committee and maybe they're more comfortable asking questions of you than of us, or whatever the case may be. I think it'll be nice to mingle.
Could we have something to designate that we're on the committee?
Yes, so we're gonna have poster boards, and.
But I mean, something
name
for us to
tag.
wear?
Oh, to wear, sure, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I
We
think
have,
you too.
we have lanyards and,
Yeah,
And-
make some
and
name
or-
tags.
Ask me
Yeah.
a question or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that?
yeah, we can do that. We can certainly do that, so it's visible.
I did want to also do a shout out, I think, to Nathan perhaps, and maybe Hallie for the little thing you had on the,
Oh, the video?
The little
Yeah,
video.
we had done a little 15-second, we'll call it a commercial advertising the Enrichment Center on all the social media platforms that the city has. And so far that outreach has been, I want to say it's pretty positive. So I don't know what the Facebook impressions were, but I know just on YouTube alone it was like 40 to 50 views, which is more than any of the other videos that we have on the city website, or on the city YouTube page right
Yeah.
now, so
Okay, good.
I'm not disappointed in the results of
Yep,
it.
yep.
I'm actually encouraged, so.
And I know there was something I saw on Facebook, but then I have to go back to it, that just said to share the Facebook page.
Yes,
And
yes.
that was good, I thought.
Hallie, did Hallie
Yeah,
put that
Hallie's,
up?
yeah, Hallie's been working on
Yeah,
that.
that's nice.
I don't know what but like I said, I don't know what the impressions are, which is basically the number of
Right.
views and all that, how many people saw it. And 15 seconds is easy for someone to just,
I mean, it was like flips of like the gift shop and different activities going
Maybe.
on and.
It's gonna ruin your.
That's okay.
By the way, if I might suggest, the Photo News is running a Pinecrest survey on the Lincoln County website.
Yeah, we saw that.
Oh,
And
okay.
So if you're capable and interested in going there and voting, there, since the county refused to allow us to have a referendum, the Photo News has been gracious enough to try to get some feedback from the general community on the Lincoln County website.
It's in the photo news today.
Oh, was it?
they just put it in the photo
Okay.
news
Oh,
today.
okay.
The
That-
survey is?
Not the survey, I think.
Well, it's the link to the
The link to
survey.
it.
Oh, I see.
So it's right there.
Cause that link is, I already looked at that link, yeah, I'll keep
Okay.
that opinion to myself. but-
Okay. All right, very good.
Anything else in the open house? Questions? Comments?
I made a note for the name tags for everybody,
Hope you're
volunteers and instructors, and what's that?
Hope you're ready.
We're always ready. Always, we got our big show coming up, we're used to this. It's fun. This is fun. This is the fun part of it.
fun in the budget.
Not fun.
What do you mean the budget's
Fun and
not
not
fun?
fun.
Come on.
No, it's not as bad, it's not bad. We'll survive.
Okay, new October offerings.
Okay, so if you look in your newsletters, I don't have one in front of me, but we have some on the activities page, some new things coming up. Well, first of all, I want to make note, as long as if there is anybody that will watch this or listening, the City of Merrill poll workers. So Lori will be here and conducting information session on what it takes to become a poll worker, because we need poll workers. So I want to definitely, we have that right on the front page to promote the importance of that. So that's very, very nice. But if you open up into activities classes, page 2 and 3, we have photography basics, which we've been trying to do for years. So we're excited to have an information session on photography Q&A and some discussion topics that Joe will be talking about. Paint pouring is new. Our embroidery group is starting. That's a new group starting. On the right side classes, rose mauling with Pete, rug twinning with Rose. Those are all new classes.
Yeah.
So it's refreshing to see some new things. These people, Pete came in, Rose attends our craft shows all the time. She also has the stained glass art in our shop. She's a very good seller of that, and she said, I can teach that, because she had brought one of these in for the shop. So she's teaching that. She's working with a local gentleman who makes the loom. So he's going to make the looms for the people. They're going to buy them from him as part of the class cost. So it's kind of nice that they're kind of teaming up to do that.
I can ask up there, but do you happen to know if that loom's the same one we used for the weaving class?
It's similar, it's the same one that we have in the shop, and so I don't know if I don't know.
Jim, I think, maybe?
Yes, I think so.
Okay,
I think so, so that might be the same.
okay.
Yes, yes, so we have a lot of new offerings, coming up, which is refreshing.
Cell phone
And we
training
have
back,
cell
that's
phone
good.
training is back, our church mutual volunteers are back now. We took, I think, 1 or 2 months off because summer, our volunteers weren't available as much, and the 3 of us can't be in here training. So that's nice that we brought that back. The Secrets of the Happiest Retirees is coming back. I'm very excited about that. I sat in that one and realized that I thought I knew what I was going to do when that day comes that I retire, and I realized I did not. And so we're bringing it back, which is great. And then we have a free workshop that's new also for the Strength Has No Age Limit. So
Missed
that
that.
coincides greatly with our wellness, our fitness classes that we offer. We have chair strength and balance, we have Zumba, which is great for strength and balance as well. So he reached out and said he'd like to conduct an informational workshop
Where is he from? What?
in town here. Oh, he didn't
No,
put his, okay, I'll have to get that in there.
Where he works?
Where he works.
Or Health in Motion?
Health in Motion, yes, Health in Motion.
Oh, is that out the
Yeah,
club?
they didn't put it, this is theirs, they sent it to us.
Okay.
So yes.
He has his places at
Yes,
Riverside.
yes, and so I did make it clear that when people come to do workshops, they can't sell anything, they can't sell and say, come to it's informational, and then they get to choose where they go. For instance, Hogan Law Firm came to do that, gave the packets and things, but he made sure because I talked to him too, it can't be a hard sale here, it can be informational only. And a lot of people took that information and went to other places. And that's what, we can't sell anything here directly, so.
Where's Health in Motion?
It's inside Riverside Athletic Club.
It's like physical.
Physical therapy.
It's physical therapy,
Yeah.
it's whole.
Kind of like Merrill PT.
Yeah.
Yeah. like, yeah. He's a real, I've met him before, he's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Very knowledgeable.
I did just want to add regarding classes, I just think the classes that are offered here are so reasonable compared
Yes.
to other places.
Yes.
You look at, I'm always looking at classes in different places, and, you're talking 60,
50,
70,
60.
yeah,
Yeah.
or hundreds sometimes.
yes.
And it's really nice to have such affordable classes, I
It
think.
is, and I think that's part of our goal, is to make things affordable and available to all price ranges, right? Some people want to graduate and do a little bit more expensive, like the oil paintings and such, but the paint pouring, we said, are you sure that's all you want?
Yeah.
For
Very
two
reasonable.
11 by 14 canvases, you only want $12.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I kept saying, $12 for one 11 by 14 is reasonable. No, she just loves it. She has a ton of supplies and she just wants to share her talent. And she said it's so easy and fun, but she said, I'm thinking that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But I would say those 11 by 14s aren't cheap.
No,
Right,
just
exactly,
canvas
just
alone.
those themselves, right? So, yes, thank you for saying that, because I do appreciate, and the photography basics, we're keeping it at $2, and he's spending time educating people. We're gonna start it with that and see how that one goes, so, and he's very excited
The
and
cost of
nervous.
day trips is very reasonable too.
Yes,
When you compare it to things I've seen in Wausau.
yes, so we try to keep it reasonable. So we're happy to do that,
I do have a question.
of course.
Isn't as fun, but I know you
That's
talked
okay.
a month or two ago about
yes.
the ads.
So I just followed up with her on Monday. She is actually on page 5, and Ruth is our sales rep she came here
Okay.
to call locals, stop in. She didn't use our phone. I offered the phone because it's a warmer call when it's a 536 number, calling a 536 number or whatever. She said, oh no, we have everything on, it's a corporation. They have everything, phone calls and everything through their computer dialed on her phone. So we had gotten some feedback that people called and said they, first of all, weren't sure if it was spam, if it was a scam, you know, because that's what world we live in.
Right.
Yeah, that's the world we live in.
And it's sad. And so I gave that feedback to her. Also mispronunciation of who we were with Bell Tower. There was some confusion there. I received some feedback. So I provided that to them, and I invited her back to use our phone.
Okay.
And so hopefully she will come back and use our phone. And that's why they used to do that for years. Even when I was at the old center, they would come for a week and spend the week and use our phone to call to get our ads. So we did get a few though. We did get a few new ads from her being here, so that was good.
Did you ever talk to Clyde Nelson at the chamber office? 'Cause Clyde would maybe be able to help you. They have, you know,
Yeah,
we
with
have-
all the,
we have a
You mean the
huge-
list? We got the list from the chamber and provided it to her.
Okay.
The full entire list of businesses that are under the chamber.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I'm sorry, is that what you-
I'm suggesting maybe Clyde would be able to help you call somebody in particular and,
the only
Fill in the
pushback
blank.
to that would be Clyde is already busy as it is. You know, I know him very well, and he's working basically full-time as a part-time executive for them.
I
So
know.
it's,
He's also a good friend of this place, because I'm a
I-
chamber member too. We think we have a good director in Clyde, and he's willing to help
He's
with a lot of
wonderful.
stuff.
Well, I can mention it to him that if in casual conversation he's meeting with, you know, businesses that there's an advertising
couldn't
opportunity.
hurt.
Right, that he can not make it solely just cold calling like she's doing, but within his interactions, I'm sure he would help us along. So yes, I can certainly mention that to him.
What are the costs of some of these ads, do you know? I'm just,
I do not. I do
Find
not
out.
know.
I was
I do
wondering that
not
too.
know.
I don't know either. It seemed like in the church one, they were expensive.
A couple of years ago, we had a little rundown of by the squares, by the size.
Yeah, we did,
And
we
I
did.
remember-
That's been a few years back that, yeah, and I have not gotten an updated from
Yeah.
them, but I will. I
it'd be
can,
nice if we ran into some
yeah,
business,
yeah,
we thought.
but to
yeah,
say, because all of us know a business or two that
yeah.
might be willing to throw, you know, 10, 15 bucks a month towards
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
So it'd be nice to know kind of
Yeah.
what a,
I will email Ruth and get that from her.
And what's the distribution of this?
We have 1,700 a month that goes out.
Are actually mailed out?
Our mail, no, we don't do any mailing,
No.
that would cost us.
Oh,
We
then-
deliver in the geographic area, it goes all the way up to Tomahawk Library, we have some up in Tomahawk area. But it's available, the second I publish it at LPI, people are subscribed and they get it in their inbox in their email. So we have that and people can sign up for that as well.
Some time ago, Robbie Johnson, who buys everything they've ever tried to sell, he asked me, you know, what do we do here? You know, it's kind of interesting, because Rob's been involved in this town for 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought of it, but I bet you, you know, he would be a good, I know he'd buy an ad.
Is he through a business or just a?
Well, they used to own the pharmacy, and now they own, I don't know what it's
Johnson's
called.
Gifts and
Johnson's
Collectibles.
Gifts.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a clothing store, and
That'd be
Yeah.
a good age demographic too, I'm guessing, for.
Did you invite him to coffee?
well, they used to have a restaurant downstairs too. But
They did.
Yeah, they closed that
they
now.
don't do it
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
there's 1,700 of these,
Mhm.
and how about the electronic one?
Whoever subscribes to it.
do we have a number?
A number?
Like how many people get it electronically?
I do not know. I'd have to check with LPI to see how many are actually
I
subscribed.
mean, if we
But we
approach a
promote
business,
that.
we can say there's 1,700 paper and
Yeah.
X
Right.
number
And-
Yeah.
electronic. but
Yeah.
they're
I'm about to
Yeah.
say, if you could get that
Mhm.
information,
Yeah.
it would,
I know for me, I do the electronic, and it's really nice to just get that popping in the box,
Yep,
it's just
the
that,
second-
even though I
and
get
it's-
this, it's
And it's
like,
before it's even in print,
In print.
because the second I upload it for
It's
print,
available.
it's available,
Yeah,
and then
that's
mass email
nice.
goes out to everybody who's subscribed, so.
How do we subscribe to it?
how did I do that? It was so long ago, I don't remember.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
if it's on the
Maybe you need a workshop on that.
website.
Yeah.
Or maybe that would be a little thing to,
They
put your
should-
own little
they should
info.
have that in
It has
here.
Facebook on the back. That's-
Yeah.
Yeah, but they,
Because in
I-
the winter, it'd be more convenient for people if they're not
Yeah,
in
yeah,
town
to
or
not have
whatever.
to-
yeah, yeah. Yeah, they should have that. Yeah, it's been a while since that came out.
Where do you see that, Jay?
Facebook's down there.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
For ad information, they got a number, and then they've got a website. I suppose you could do it that way.
I'm thinking for some reason I got on the MEC through the cities. Is that where I subscribed? I don't remember.
It does get confusing when you are.
It
Right.
does, it does. But I will check, well, Vicky might have that too when we were promoting it to subscribe to our newsletter. Right on our webpage there should be. But again, if people aren't going to that and they're looking in this, you know, you can say subscribe by this way. And I don't know if it's with the LPI communities, and then you find Merrill Enrichment Center and hit subscribe. But yeah, we'll look into that.
I mean, you can read the newsletters off of the,
Mm-hmm. And we put it on our website right away. It's on Facebook right away for those people, but if they want it in their email.
Right.
I'm trying to look at it right
Yeah,
now. It's,
yeah. Yeah, let me know if you find that. Okay, yeah, but I will,
not on the website for,
What's not?
um, you can find the newsletters, but,
But to have
There's
them
no
but to
way.
sent
have them
directly
sent
to
to your
you.
yeah,
email.
yeah, that might end up being something through the company.
Oh, here, never miss our newsletter, subscribe.
Oh,
There it is.
That big bright orange page.
we're looking at a little tiny print and.
And a huge
Yeah,
page. So it
it
is,
is.
it is my community online.
Well, there we go.
It was just too
So
big.
it was too big.
Isn't that, what does that say?
When I look at that though, it looks like I'm subscribing to something called the community
Community,
newsletter.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm subscribing to
Well, and
this.
I think because they say our newsletter,
Yeah,
it's our newsletter. So that's, you know what I mean?
that's what they mean, but
Yeah, that's what
I don't
they
read
mean.
it
Yeah,
that way.
I
Yeah.
see your point, yes.
I would be thinking what am I getting?
Myself, right.
Yep, and then you probably, yeah. So I'll go through that actually myself. I'll pull that up and see how easy or not easy it is. And then maybe we can have a little thing on the front that says,
Right.
this is how, if you'd like our email, our newsletter in your email, here's step 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
Yeah, that might make it easier, because you're right, those are all good points.
Yeah. But no, if we could figure out how many electronic ones are getting sent out
Mhm.
as soon
Yeah,
as
I'm
you
sure
get
they know.
signed.
I'm sure they know that because it's on their end and they can search that, so, and let us know. Yeah. I do know that before this is even out in print, we have people calling to sign up for things.
Right.
So it's a lot of times the people who want to get on the bus trips and not miss out on the seat or get in a painting class. I had a few of those calls right away. So yeah, they subscribe because they want first dibs.
I would just be interested if it's a few hundred, if it's, you know,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Well, I do know that, gosh, this was a bit back, and some of you might remember this conversation, but somebody who used to live here but now lives out in California subscribes just because they like our newsletter and to see what's happening in their community. So that was a cool call. That was years ago, though. So, all right, good conversations and questions, and I'll get those answers for you.
Thank you.
All right, endowment policy review.
Right, so you have that in your sheet, second sheet. This is the completed policy. I ran it through Tom, through Kathy, our finance director. And so they both critiqued it. I made the changes that they required me to change. And so this is an overview of the fund policy. You can look at it now, of course, but if you also take it along with you and, you know, read it again when it doesn't feel so rushed, and if you feel there's anything that wording wise or other, but Kathy and Tom did review it for me more than once.
It's good, very good.
So thank you, Jean, for your,
If I might suggest, there would be a good idea if the city council saw this too. Do they get a copy of this stuff?
Yes, I can get them a copy, and our endowment fund brochures are already printed. Matt from VIP is right on things. I sent it, and the next day it was here. Now we get to fold them all. Volunteers? No.
I'm happy to go.
Steph has little things that we can
Guides.
clip in so that we can, get them.
Even,
Yeah, I'll delegate that.
Buzz,
So I-
You should have a motion to approve this.
Okay.
I have a, before you do that, just a
Yes,
question
yes.
based on your suggestions after the last meeting
Mhm.
about having like 2 people sign, or
It looks like no one else is going to join this.
when the gift is given, that the director and one other person
You mean for signing checks?
for signing checks, and I don't see that in,
Signing checks?
or not sign,
We
but
don't sign checks.
depositing or acknowledging the gift, or, remember there,
So there is in here
Am I
funding,
missing it?
any endowment fund donations received by the MEC that are not designated by the donor for a specific purpose or account may be designated for a specific purpose by the director and or the MEC committee.
yeah, that's not what I'm speaking about.
You-
Your
No,
concern,
I think the point she's making has to do with if you use the money for the purchase of something out of the endowment fund that you have to pay for. And-
So the money is deposited and I pull it,
And you're pulling money.
yes, then that will be recorded in the documentation, the reporting. When I pull, so it's gonna be in, if you look on, I don't know if I gave you the second sheet of this, but I have a line item in my budget 26, and it's a new one, and I know I didn't give this to you. This is the second part of it.
oh,
So under here, it is memorials and endowment. It has its own account. So when I pull from that, it will show as an expense pull. But I will designate and specifically in my reporting say this is what that money was used for. So signature-wise, there's nothing, I'm not
Okay.
sure that there's any need for
I know
signatures.
the library board was just talking yesterday about that same kind of concept.
Okay,
You
and,
know, where it was, but it was that 2 people could do it, not that 2 people had to do it. It was either one or the other was going to make that, deposit that donation money, basically.
oh, you're talking on the deposit end, the front
Yeah,
end.
on the
Okay.
front
I'm
end of
missing
it.
from that
No,
conversation.
yeah.
I just want to make sure that, because that was important.
Yeah.
So, Jean, could you refresh my memory on that? Like, what was the
Well,
signature?
no, my point was, is that in some endowment distributions of money, whatever it might be for, that there be 2 signatures for each distribution. So if you were, if you were going to distribute some money or give some money or pay for something, you're gonna write a check or something that there have to be 2 signatures
Right, okay,
for
yep,
that.
correct. And so because I don't do the money, we might get a check in the mail. I bring that to deposit to city clerks. I write it out, send it to city clerks, they get it to the finance director they handle all the money. I get the money and I give it to them and they sign it, the check, and they deposit it into the right account. So I think that's where those signatures are going to come
The
from.
one I think that's also important is the use of funds,
Yes,
because as you know, for 10 years, we've had, well, when I say we, I say that loosely, I guess I've been the bumblebee here, but so that no endowment funds need to be used for operating expenses,
right.
because we end up always paying the city to operate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's other departments that are doing that too, unfortunately.
We'll
But-
get there, we'll get there in our budget talk.
But it does also say in here.
It says,
that
or for
it-
use
It
within
shall
other
not be
city
used for
departments
any normal operations or within the other city
of
of
Merrill
Merrill departments. So it can't go anywhere except for the endowment
Right.
fund.
Right, for the enrichment center, right,
So-
and that I wanted to make very clear.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if that was gonna be allowed or not, but both Kathy and Tom said, yes, that's.
That's why I was surprised when I saw it.
Mhm.
No, but yeah,
But it's a valid
It's a
concern.
big deal.
It's a valid concern, yeah,
I
just,
mean,
yeah.
I'll be honest, this is my first true budget session, but I've seen so many of them. I've seen how departments get
Mhm.
money get recycled somehow.
Mm-hmm,
I've seen it within the school district, for crying out loud.
mm-hmm,
I can get that, but that's why you
Mhm.
put those policies and those things into place where
Mhm.
it can't.
What do you mean, Gene, it's a big deal? Big deal?
Well, since we started, the city has asked that when we make some money here, well, maybe you should explain.
You know what, we're getting, that's our budget talk.
Okay,
Yep,
good.
so we're
Just
getting
making
there.
sure.
Very good questions. But if you do see anything in, this is fluid.
Do we-
I mean, this is gonna be, I want you to all look at it, maybe again, see if you put it away and look at it
Before
again,
the
if
motion.
anything
Well, I
stands
say-
out. But I feel like it's, especially because Kathy and, I mean, I had some stuff in there that they redlined and said, nope. I was like, okay, why? They explained it, I'm like, okay. So, yeah,
The
so they
only-
went through it thoroughly.
Thing I could think of, just to make it very, just, and maybe it's not needed, but in some parts you say the MEC endowment fund, and the next, like under funding, you
Right.
start with the MEC endowment, and then
Right.
use of funds, no part of the endowment. I would just be consistent. Every time you say endowment, you say MEC endowment fund, MEC endowment fund.
Okay.
So add that.
That would,
And under reporting, you've got annual endowment, I would say MEC endowment, just to be clear, consistent.
Okay, that's
yeah,
a
up
good
in the mission,
suggestion.
up in mission there, it also says the mission.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
up.
up here, it's both, it's one and or, instead of writing it out, it's the MEC.
Right, and
So
I think
have
that's
that,
good, but
you
I
know,
think just
so-
down
Right,
yeah.
but-
below,
Yeah, but even in the mission, it
Mission,
just
right,
says the
it
mission
should
of
be
the endowment fund, it
MEC.
should probably say the mission of the MEC
Mhm.
endowment fund, because there are a few other endowment funds out
Yep.
there that the
just to
city,
be,
the city, they can look there and go, oh, right there,
Right.
it says just the endowment
Yeah.
fund, so it could go to the library.
Mhm.
so I think it just would be,
Yeah, I like Lori, but I'm not Sharon.
Yeah.
Her and I laugh about that. Okay, so yes, very good suggestion, I will do that. That'll just take me not even a minute.
And I can't remember if we touched on this before, but do we as a committee get a report by, in the middle of the year, or, twice a year?
It says in here just once a year in December.
Yeah.
Once a year, okay, that's right. Okay.
But I can give updates throughout. I'll do that. If in any given month that we, before our meeting, we get a check, I can say we've received money for our endowment.
With
Honestly, like a December and a June wouldn't be the worst thing in the world either, because
Mhm.
it's, after the spring and winter months are down, and then after the summer
And
and
if there's
fall.
nothing to report,
And if there's nothing to report in June, then there's nothing to
There's nothing to
report.
report.
well, actually, that timing is kind of nice because you get a new board, potentially new committee members.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
around
then
that
that would
May,
be-
June
right,
area.
June timeframe.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Right.
especially with election year coming up,
Yeah.
you're gonna get, potential new.
I don't know.
And
that's-
donors will be recognized with these,
I have all of that written down, yes, yeah.
with those little wooden tree things.
That's if it's 250 or above, that was on the brochure.
Yeah,
And we will, so that's all in place as well.
Is there, how much more
Let me ask about the reporting.
Yeah.
Generally, they're annual reports, our endowments of annual reports. So I don't know if informally, the one in June I just provide to the committee, but the end of year is for like the official end of year, like a full year report out.
Correct, I'm not saying it
Yeah.
has to go into the policy
Right,
that you
that's what
have to
I'm-
do it every June,
Yeah.
but a general update, so that way the
Yeah.
board is aware, oh,
Yeah,
hey, this is
so
where
I think
we're
for
at.
the board, for our
Wh-
committee, I'll be, if there is anything to report in June, I'll report it in our June meeting. But officially on this, I think an annual report is sufficient.
Mhm.
That's very standard, so.
If we're talking to people about this and they say, well, what's an example of what you're gonna use the endowment money for? What would we say? Is it to buy a new coffee pot? Or is it to bring in a nationally known speaker? I mean, if people, what are you gonna use your money for? So what's a normal operating expense versus a not a normal I mean, if people are, if I wanna give,
Yeah,
let's say I have a relative who died and I wanna give $1,000 to this. They may say, well, what are you gonna use the $1,000 for?
So,
Or,
just,
so,
this
I mean,
is
how do
just-
we answer that question?
Well, the interesting thing is, I called Tom again before our meeting to talk about the word operating.
Mhm.
Because should it say administrative?
Right.
And he said operating covers, it's a blanket, it's a safe
blanket
blanket
statement.
word for any type of administration. The money will not go to pay us. That's bottom line what it is.
The normal operating covers employees, administrators. I mean, it's not gonna cover like the
Building,
cost of 1,000,
Like, we
yeah,
have to heat the building, that,
yeah.
all of
It
that
can't cover the
operating like that.
WPS bill, anything like that.
But it could
But
cover
it
like
could
a
cover
new bus,
it could cover the 1,000 mints for crying out loud.
it could cover a new bus.
a bus, or could it cover a sign?
It could cover a sign. Anything that is a one-time, it could get considered a capital investment, basically.
To Jay's point, would it be helpful to have kind of a wish list of, I don't know,
I mean,
things that
Eventually,
we would
because
love to have?
so
I don't know.
just going off of what other departments have done, the Parks and Rec department is the biggest one that does this. They have a list of, 20 different projects that they want to get done. I mean, there's no funding for 20 different projects, but they keep a wish list basically running. And it's like, as things get done, you cross it off. I think the festival grounds just started one too for all the projects that could help improve the festival grounds area. Wouldn't hurt for us to do that here too also, where it's like, hey, we would like a new sign, we're probably gonna need a new boiler, in the boiler room. Well, we could probably do, as things come up,
Yeah.
cross them off, and maybe if there's room in the city budget too to help with those things. So,
If we wanted to start a new exercise class that required equipment.
Okay, but under funding, you have, so any endowment donations received that are not designated for a specific purpose or account. So someone could come in and say, I want this to go towards,
a new
bus.
sign or
A
a new
bus.
bus.
Because they
or-
love
yep.
traveling on the bus and they think everybody should. They can designate specifically,
And
and
that-
we can guide them. I can guide them in some areas to say, future upcoming potential, our
Yeah.
sign is peeling outside right now.
And that's maybe where, as a board, we
So-
should sit here one of these days and
Yeah.
just be like, this is a project that, and then prioritize our own way, like, okay, 1 through 10, what's our priority
Right.
does
on
that,
getting these things done?
I guess then I'm wondering if I say, well, I want another bus, and so I put $1,000 towards that, and nobody else does that for years and years, will I be upset that my money went towards a bus and that's never getting done?
Well,
I don't know how it works.
That's a very good question. I think that $1,000 would go to repair on the bus then, any service that gets done on the bus, and any type, the bus, it's a bus.
Well,
So there's
But-
going to be those things.
The
If they say,
terminology would probably be bus program, which would
Right.
include the bus as well as
encompass it,
whatever it's used
and
for.
unless they said, save this for a new bus, well, guess what? That may never happen.
Right. Well, that's what I mean.
Yes.
Well,
So-
I think eventually it would happen because you'd have to
Well,
get a new
eventually
one.
it is gonna
But then to sit there and be like, to look at the council too and be like, hey, we have $1,000 sitting in this account for a new bus that has been designated for that new bus because that was a donation specifically towards that. So with technically $1,000 off the asking price, I can guarantee a few of those council members would go, even $1,000 is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
So
Right, exactly.
I don't know
Every
if
once
that
in a while, though,
addresses your-
there are programs that, I know you asked like what, but I know at the library, we would have programs that we would like to bring in that we could pay partial for out of our budget, but they were far more expensive than just what we could pay. But in order to bring that person in, because to bring a person in, I was always a little surprised, because you know, sometimes you pay $1,000 to get a person to come here. And I always thought that was outrageous. But it's obviously quite common to pay that kind of money for a program of a highfalutin person to come here.
$1,000 is actually pretty cheap nowadays.
Well, I know.
Just throwing that out there. Sometimes it's
I'm
5
talking
to
about
10
in my
grand.
old days, you know. $1,000 was worth more money.
I know.
But, and for us, the flexibility it gives our staff here to bring in programs that maybe cost more than we could normally charge for. Because for some of these, and if we want to make them available to our community, we would have to charge more than we probably would want. And this
Right.
would help do that.
Right, exactly.
So it can be
That's a
for
great
something
question.
intangible then?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be something that we can pick up and move. I mean, it could be the speaker.
Yeah,
Someone could say,
Yes.
Grandma always liked to go on the bus trips, I want to sponsor a bus trip to
yes.
Madison for shopping, or
Yes,
something
yes.
like that,
Yep.
in Memorial, you know,
Yes.
something.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that, as long as it doesn't cover everyday expenses, then that's what this endowment fund could.
I would
That-
move
that-
the
Jay, that's a
approval
very
of
good question. I'm glad you
the
brought that up.
endowment fund policy with the modifications as were suggested, if I might.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? Does anyone want a chance to look at it before we do that, or?
But I guess I wouldn't mind waiting until next month to approve it, just to kind of look it over 1 or 2 more times, but if the rest of the committee is.
I wanted to put some endowment flyers out at our open house already.
Okay.
So
Well,
is that okay then, if we still put them
Well,
out?
I mean,
we
if
can
you-
always do the change.
We can promote
If you
it.
have some changes, we can always do.
Yeah, we can always revise,
We can always
right?
amend it again.
Yeah,
Revision.
No, and that's what I'm saying, if the rest of the committee is ready, then I guess,
We're ready.
then,
We're ready. We
you know,
wanna
I'm
give
okay
them-
with it.
It's for their protection primarily, so.
Yeah, and obviously, yeah, you could put the flyers out at the open house, I wouldn't.
Well, and but I think if something comes up before our next meeting even, and you look and say, oh, I looked at this and I was thinking of this, we'll just put it back on. And then if we have to
re-motion.
revise it,
No, and
I'll
that's,
do a revision, and I think it needs to, it's set, but I don't think it's set in stone. I mean, we may
and that's
find
fair and fine,
something.
that's where I said,
Yeah.
I'm good with it,
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring up that one little.
Mhm.
We have a question
Okay. We have a motion on the table
in a second.
and a second.
Mhm.
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, thank you. All right, next, budget.
Who's excited?
Super. Okay, so as Mr. Bevel was saying at the beginning of the meeting when we talked about the city requesting funds from us each year. When I first started, I think it was 5,000.
10,
That was the second year.
second year.
Yeah.
Oh.
I like the
That was
5,000. I really like the 5,000. Of course, as we grow, as we have tremendously grown since that time, that number continues to grow. And the sheet in front of you that is the sheet I wanted you to see because it will show you what we currently have in revenue versus expenses for this year. So if you look at that, it should be 17,000, I think, something in revenues.
$17,372.99 in revenue.
How come there's no revenue for strong body? Strong body, sorry.
Strong bodies, yeah.
Yep, sorry.
And then $14,584.78 in expenses.
Right. And then if you, and then I didn't make you a copy of the one for our Beerman funding, but that basically is our bus, because we don't have the meal program anymore, and I'll be probably more than likely in the new year moving the money from the Beerman meal program right into the bus, because we take a lot of bus trips and the funding is needed more in that. As long as it stays under Beerman, a Beerman designated, because that was Beerman designated. So I can't take that Beerman meal and move it into activities. Okay, so I have to use that here.
Question. How complete is this right now?
What do you mean?
I guess the numbers aren't adding up for me a little bit here. Where does that balance of $84,798?
That's cumulatively. So this is just for 2023. The revenue is just for 2023. But this cumulative 84,800 is what we have from years past that is carried over. That's what's in our account,
Because I see
right?
the balance sheet of 53,000 for the end of 2022. I see that. I'm just the math isn't adding up to me, I guess, to the 84. But that if we have 84,000, I'm happy with that. That's
And that may be because
you see what I'm saying? That doesn't
I
quite
do.
make sense. At the most there, I would see 70,000, but that's before you take out the expenses.
And I'm wondering if that also includes the Beerman's, that you don't have that sheet.
Now, granted, if you actually look at this and add the 17,000 into the 53, and then add also the 14, then you would get your 84. But that's not how expenses work too. So
Right, I see what you're saying with that.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that and ask her about it.
Right.
But the things I'm really focusing on right now are the revenue expenses for 2023, right? So our revenue is 17,372. I just want to take a look at that right now. Because what the original plan was going into this year that they budgeted to take from us was $15,649. So right now we've only made $17,372.
But we've
Also spent, right?
Right.
So my point is, it starts dipping into that 84,000 that isn't adding up right now, but
by a lot.
it starts dipping into that,
it dips
right?
into it a lot.
Right,
and
but it gets better.
I'm thinking it gets worse, is what you're saying. Go ahead.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
being facetious.
I know, thanks.
So there's a little note on here that says it likely will need to be at least $20,000. So I'm just putting that out. Each year they're taking more. We like to have our fees affordable, right, for everybody involved. So if we keep taking more than we're making, this number that looks like, oh, we have a ton of money, no, we won't. That won't last too many years. So I'm a little concerned about that. Granted, it's only September. We have 3 months left. So we'll have 3 more months of,
and we have a lot
revenue,
of,
but we have more expense.
well, and we also have a lot of budget sessions too that we have to go through.
Right,
and
which next week, Tuesday, I think
next week, Tuesday is capitals and
Yep.
it's supposed to be the audits.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. So now our budget season begins, and so we'll figure these things out. But we need to just be aware that,
Do they ask for more from Park and Rec also?
what's that?
Do they ask for more from Park and Rec
Oh,
also?
Park and Rec, they've cut from every single year that I've been, I mean.
And the library. So here's the words that I received. The fiscal reality is that non-mandatory city departments, us, library, and Park and Rec are non-mandatory. I think people would beg to differ. Must need to cover most of their department's expenses. That's the information I got. The priority, police, fire, and streets, naturally, right? So that's the kind of department we are. Non-mandatory, and I, again, would beg to differ on that because we're keeping our community healthy and well and moving, and there's things to do, so people move here. I mean, I could go on and on. But I think we need to realize that in the big picture of the city, we're not as mandatory.
Right, and there is something to be said with that train of thought. Now, granted, I agree with you that like our library, our Park and Rec, and our Merrill Enrichment Center are a luxury for our citizens, but it's a luxury that keeps them here.
Right,
Because let's face
exactly.
it, they leave, they go to a town that doesn't have these sort of deals and they go, wow, Merrill does have actually a lot
Yes,
to
yes,
offer to
a
it.
lot to offer, right?
So,
So, yeah, so.
all
we-
that being
yeah, yeah.
said, I get where it's like, yeah, we do need to fund these things, but at the same time, as an alderman, I can look and go, we have several departments that are luxuries that somehow we find as a necessity. Because that's just what our citizens are asking of us, so.
And we're expecting that because we've had them.
But yeah, and that's just it. How long has the Enrichment Center been around? As long as I've been alive, and I'm 30 years old, so it's probably been even longer than that.
Oh,
Y-
back in the city hall, yeah.
Yeah, back
Yeah.
when it was in the
Yeah.
city hall, I
In
mean,
the
Early
70s.
70s.
Early
yeah.
70s,
So I
Well,
mean,
it's over 50 years old.
yeah,
and it only just got here, what, maybe,
2017.
yeah, so 5, 6
6
years ago? It's amazing where this has come, and obviously, according to the balance sheet, even though the numbers aren't
Yeah,
adding
right.
up,
I can't
it's
figure
still
that out.
saying that within a single year, it's self-sufficient
Mhm.
and actually making a profit, so,
But it's 17,
But-
give or take 17,000 a year coming out of that 84, right?
Well,
Would be the
yeah,
difference between
so-
our, what we've made and what we've spent,
And again,
give or take.
eventually
Out of
that
the 20,000 they
net,
want.
that net loss, if they sit there and take what should probably look closer to 60,000 a year if my math is correct. If they're taking 20,000 out of that, then we're down to 43, and then if
Right,
they take
and then
another
the next
20
year,
yeah,
and then the next
Right,
year,
that's what I mean, it's
and
like
then
4
where are we
years
gonna
in.
be? 4
Right.
years
and
we
it's
would
gonna
be
be
dry.
depleted.
Yep.
I know,
And, okay, so on that note, and that's exactly where when I was looking at it, I was like, we've got 3 healthy years left if this keeps happening, maybe 4, and then what? Okay, so what if scenario, if this is going to continue to happen, we need to increase
The fees.
our fees.
Right.
And that's ultimately how we will have to survive, is to continue increasing our fees.
can I make
Some
this?
people can't afford increased fees.
I think some people have short memories then. Because when we had the 10,000, and we said
No,
no, and we said this is unreasonable at 10,000, the response was, don't worry about it, it'll never go above 10,000. So don't get all upset about it, because at 10,000 you can handle that, and it was, I guess, accepted by most of this board at 10,000, not by all of us,
Reluctantly.
obviously.
reluctantly.
To answer, I think Jay's question is still on the table, though. What, you need to explain what we're doing here. We're paying the city.
Yeah, that, I don't
A ton of
I'm new,
money.
so I don't understand when you said they want 20,000, they is
city-
the city?
The city is shuffling balance books around basically to cover expenses in other departments, and
So we are
Be-
like a
because
profit center for the city?
Well,
there's a few departments like that, yeah.
yeah,
Unfortunately, I mean, that's,
isn't it the library and park and rec and
library for the
Merrill
most part.
are the only income generating
Library,
departments?
well, so for the city itself, it would
That's-
only,
That's fairly true.
for the city itself, it would only be the Enrichment Center and the Park and Rec Department, because the library,
It's half county.
yeah, because the library is half county and it's ran by its board of trustees, so,
But we're forgetting here, we complained about the fact that our rates were set at a level that we thought people would participate with us, and at a rate that almost everybody could afford. The city, and specifically a city attorney and our treasurer and the mayor at the time, all agreed that at $10,000, we would maintain that so we could maintain our rates. That was, well, I'm not saying written in blood, but it was
It was,
assured
yes.
to us, because we suggested that we did not want to have to raise our rates for people to participate, to send money to the city, if some of you might recall. And they said, well, don't worry, you don't have to worry about that, that 10,000
Right.
is where we're gonna be able to stay. And that's why I guess I'm somewhat ashamed that we're trying to balance our budget on the costs that we're bringing in from collecting money from people here,
And I
to
can,
give to the city. I don't understand.
and I can agree with that as a city alderman. I'm not saying that this is right. The only thing I can say is this is the way it's been. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying this is just
So
the
we
way it's
accepted
been.
Jason the 10,000 with a lot of objections.
Yes.
Correct.
And the
Yes.
10,000 was assured that we shouldn't have to worry about it.
And you said the other year it was what, 15,000 that they took?
They wanted 15 this year.
And,
And now
and
they
so,
want more.
and then I do have a question, because it was mentioned to me about the ARPA funds, the 12,500 we were given in ARPA funds last year.
Okay.
We were one of the lowest departments, and I don't know if we ever received that full amount or not. I
What's
think
ARP again?
American Rescue
Yeah.
from COVID and everything
Yeah.
else. So we got a little small portion of it, library got a small portion, I think Park and Rec did as well. But we
Park and
shouldn't,
Rec got $140,000.
we shouldn't have to pay that back as ARPA funds. Somewhere along the line, I thought I heard that we may have to possibly pay some of that back, but I need to clarify that because I
I'm
didn't
about to
think, I
say-
thought a rescue fund was a rescue fund.
As far as I'm aware, we don't have to pay the federal government
Yeah,
back for
right,
that. If anything,
right.
they're talking internally, like, oh, hey, pay some of that back. so the
Right,
street
and that's
department-
internally,
And-
so
oh,
that's
right.
what I'm saying,
Well,
it's
and
like that, I
and
don't want
get-
them to come back at us and what was given and take some now because they need
Because
it.
the street department
Right.
prices skyrocketed through the roof to
Right.
a point where we were only able to do, I think, like 2 or 3 streets this year
Mm-hmm.
compared to the 5 projects that we normally do.
Right, right,
I mean, and I get some of their concerns, I really do. I just,
yeah.
stealing from Peter to pay for Paul
Well,
is,
and, right,
you
and
know.
I made it clear to Kathy when she sent me, an update, and I said I was having a very difficult time with the 15,649, but 20,000?
Right.
Really having difficulty with that. And if I can present it as such to say that we've only made 17,000 so far this year, and our more expenditures are coming in our final quarter, you're gonna be taking more than we make.
I wouldn't even say that. I would say at this point, we only have 3,000.
Right.
Or whatever.
Technically, because, yeah, minus our expenses for this year,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
mean, you're,
And that's all we have.
That's all we have.
what you left 2022 with, if you throw that out the window.
Right.
Just throw that out the window,
Mhm.
you made this year
Yeah,
about $2,800.
Right.
If my rough math is correct.
right,
That,
right. And they're taking
and they're
20.
taking 20,000. Okay, so you're negative this year then,
Mm-hmm,
about
17, 18, yeah. Mhm.
$17,200.
Yeah.
That is astronomical, and
For
No.
a small department, it is,
That's
we're
the
the
whole point,
smallest
Jason.
department.
That's the whole point, and that's
I know.
what we argued about from day one here.
the
We
only
settled on the 10,000 because the year that we settled on 10,000, Kathy was able to convince enough people that we were desperate. And we were willing to participate in their desperation.
And I guess the best thing to say about all of this whole situation is this is Kathy's last year. So, I mean, I'm not saying that she's the problem. I'm sure there's, a method to all the madness. I'm not a city finance director. I wouldn't
Well,
want the job.
No, oh
But,
God, no. But there's TIDs
but-
and TIFs, and there's all of these dynamics that roll into play where they're funding some of what this building, when we got it at that point, in the TID, if you're in the right TID, the district, the funding is there for these things, right? Well, pretty soon some of these are gonna be gone, so there's no more funding.
Yeah.
So that's where the city is getting into some of
We're
these
losing
tight
some of those
spaces. Yeah, we're
TIDs,
losing
but
some of that.
that's
Hopefully
not-
we're gaining some.
That's
I don't
also,
know.
the TIDs aren't,
Pretty dynamic.
losing the TIDs also isn't the worst thing in the world too. Let's put it that way from what I've gathered.
Yeah, but I mean, there's so many dynamics of it,
Yeah.
but the point is, I think we're essential. I will always think we're essential for the health of the community and the draw to the community. So I think there has to be some type of a discussion in our budget meetings as such to say, we need to discuss this.
Well, I'm curious, is the Expo Center being asked to forfeit
Yeah.
80% more than they take in?
I think all of their funds, I can't sit there and say this for sure. This is only from what I've gathered. A lot of their funds come from the tourism money, so that's
There's
all.
some, yep, there's
That's
some.
all protected money. It's kind of like the media productions and the marketing. That's all protected money.
Man,
And
when
not-
they rent the expo center out to the gun club, that's protected tourism money? I don't think so.
Well, I wouldn't sit there and say that, but I'm sure that goes to the expenses of
I don't
also.
like it either.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I would have to
will-
look into
I will
that.
get
and-
that answer because I know bits and pieces of it, but not
So
some
we
enough
brought
to.
this up a couple of years ago, the same
Yes,
question.
yes.
And likewise with the fairgrounds, because the fairgrounds, of course, now is being used, and we couldn't find out at the time what was the difference between what their income was and what their expenses were, because nobody was willing to share that with the fairgrounds. And I'm not sure why that should be true. If we have to share ours as it is, and we're paying out a lot more than I think we need to be or should be, the fairground should at least be telling us what we're dealing with. But they
Yeah.
don't seem to
Well,
want to
and
do that.
the fare is free. We're
Well,
already charging.
well,
I'm not taking anything
no,
against the fare. I'm just trying to think through this whole thing. Like, how do we increase?
You do have to think of the fair. I'm going to say this as a fair board member now instead of the. We do end up paying for renting the grounds for the week of, or like 2 weeks of the fair, basically.
Well, and we get kicked out for 2 weeks.
Right.
That's 2 weeks of income for
But-
us,
Yeah.
lost.
But at the same time, I'm gonna put my council member hat back on here real quickly. Gotta switch,
Flip them.
flip the hats around and talk the right ways. The grounds, like, they've improved obviously dramatically since the city bought them in like 2015, I think it was. But there's still a lot of work that
Yeah.
needs to be done, so there's a lot of expenses that go out there. And the only thing that we can sit there and say is, well, if you keep making those investments, eventually your red is gonna turn to green.
But you see, Jason, we
Hope-
could have
hope-
said
And
that,
that's the hope, obviously, but you'll never know unless you do it.
we said that 5 years ago. If we were to spend, to improve our facility here for the Enrichment Center and for the programming, by doing all of the things we wanted at that time to expend money on but couldn't or wouldn't. Example, bathrooms.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it, couldn't even talk about it because it was too expensive to have bathrooms over here for this Enrichment Center.
No, and I remember those conversations.
And the difficulty with that is we chose, or somebody chose, I guess, that we will not overexpend our funds, but they're still gonna take whatever we make and
And
more.
And I do have a problem with that, Gene.
Yeah.
I do. I think that if you're being fiscally responsible, and at this point in time, because you guys, and I'm saying you guys as, the council person and the park and rec department, if they're doing it, and the library, if they're doing it, if you're all self-sufficient, then you should remain self-sufficient,
Well, and
Yeah,
on
we shouldn't
that,
be punished for it.
Well, and
but on that note, if you recall last year's budget, there was a discussion that why does it should be the Enrichment Center, right? Why does the Enrichment Center have so much money? Well, I don't spend money just to spend money because I'm supposed to spend it down so it doesn't look like I have a lot of money. I'm looking at the future of this place for when I leave. That's the endowment.
Yeah.
And I don't spend money, but that's the first advice I was given when I started this job. You gotta spend that all down or they take it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I was completely like, I'm corporate and I'm coming here and I'm like, wait, say that again? How does this work? And so now I get it. Now I get it. And so it's like, wait, that money is there and it should be there so that when we run into difficult times like this, we have a cushion to stay functioning. And so that's what I need to be heard, is that as well.
And my concern is we get down 3-4 years, that goes down to
Yeah.
5,000. Now our revenue doesn't meet our expenses, do we
Right.
get closed down?
Re-
Because,
Exactly.
does the
That's a good
city
point.
then contribute to us to keep us going?
Yeah, that's a good
And-
Because they
point.
won't give us any more money.
Well,
Right.
and
Well-
so this, you think about,
and I guess,
It's a concern.
Tammy,
It's a concern.
I will say this, you know, with every bit of intent that I can, that just means you need to come to the council, you know, the budget meetings, which I know you will, and state your case of.
Have it,
No,
have done it.
Yeah,
it
Have
won't-
done it.
and ask the question that I believe you just said, what happens if we hit zero because you've taken every last dime from us and we have a year where we're not in the positive? What happens then?
And then
Do you
what?
shut us down, or are you actually going to help us like we helped you?
Right, right.
And if the answer from that council is, well, we're gonna shut you down then you got your
Then we
answer
know how
on
to
how
work,
this
right.
council is.
Mhm.
I'm being very blunt and very honest.
Well, I did explain that, you know, the last time too, is when I was, you know, asked, how come we have so much money? I gave them that. It's longevity of the business. I'm not gonna just spend money to spend money. It's looking to the future of that, and that's why you should always have a reserve.
Well, and then my concern is, we're starting this endowment fund, let's just say we have very generous donors.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, that account is whatever it is. And
But
then
by
it's
this-
so even more easy to, because they may not consider, well, you can't move that to that. Well, you still have that to use over and
Yeah.
above.
But it also does say within here too, you can't.
No, I understand that, but they could say, well, okay, well, don't use it, but you could still use it for all the other things you might use that 84,000 for. You could use your endowment, and that's really not what that's
But
intended.
more importantly, Laura, what they're more inclined to say is, well, raise your rates so you can get more money in, and that's not what we want to do.
Well, and I will say Park and Rec did raise a lot of their rates
They
too.
did, I saw that.
It
I
was,
saw that.
it was a
And-
good amount of rates actually that went up, but they didn't go up unreasonably too, like.
Yeah, I did.
Gene, when you agreed to give them $10,000, were we making 10,000?
Yeah, we had
We, I mean, we're
10,000.
actually making that
We
much
had,
money?
we actually
Yes.
came out 10,000 in the blue.
Because right now, we're
And somebody-
2,800 in them.
And somebody suggested, well, then that's how much we need you to contribute to the largest of the city, and we objected to it. But because of the city insisting that they had to go through this process of making everybody pay part of the penalty for the budget deficit, we paid for it. But
And that was years ago.
the premise at
That
the
was
time
okay.
was, hey, this is not gonna be fair if you keep thinking you're gonna raise this. Well, again, it was different people and different time, but
That
Yeah,
was
I guess
since
I don't
you've been
understand the
here,
budget
'cause I
process then.
recollect that.
Aren't we budgeted to pay for all your salaries and
That's
fringe
in-
benefits?
That's
and
in
I
our
assume
budget
s-
10,
And
yes.
some, yeah, I assume some allocation of
Yep.
lights and whatever we.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
they give us a
different.
certain amount of money to run on.
Right, for instance, yeah, for our salaries.
For everything, right, there's a
yeah,
budget.
Yep,
And now they're taking part of that back?
Oh,
no,
this is out of a
No,
different
this
fund.
this is our
basically-
26 fund, so the
It is
10,
confusing.
the budget 10 fund is strictly, I'm gonna call it administrative, right? It's
Yeah.
our salaries, our health insurance, you know, all of those things that would apply to being an employee. So that is separate, that'll stay as a separate fund. And then this is our reserved and designated funds. So this is what we bring in, and it stays in here for us.
There are a few departments within the city that have what, non-lapsing accounts basically. So basically they are equivalent basically to a savings account, essentially.
That's a good way
Is
to
the best way to put it is, like,
We made this
Merrill.
money, it's
Yeah.
in here,
So
it's designated.
this organization, or
Yes.
part of
Or-
city government,
yeah.
made $85,000 since its existence. Is that right? Or,
That's the
well,
current balance
Correct,
of
but
what it
didn't
is,
spend.
yes.
yeah, that's what the balance sheet says right
Yeah,
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what the current balance is right now.
but for this year, we've only made $2,800. Right?
The balance is
Technically,
28.
yes,
Right?
yes.
Of this, and they want, instead of 2,800, they want 20,000.
Potentially. 15 to
So they
20.
want,
15 to 20,
so they
that's why I
want,
say it's a little different.
you know.
quite a bit.
When we made 10,000, we
Right.
gave them 10,000.
Well,
is it a
apparently
percent
we're making
that they want
10,000.
every
Now we're
year?
not
No, it's
making
not a
that
percent.
amount.
Right.
It's whatever, like
you're
Nathan
paying
was saying, whatever the
10 times that
money,
much.
Right,
like
right.
whatever is
That's
happening as a
illogical.
whole.
Yeah.
That's confusing too.
City as a whole.
I mean, apparently Kathy found a number that said, oh, I need 15 to
But that's
Yeah,
60 somewhere.
doesn't it?
Yep,
Yeah.
it's 15,649.
Percentage.
15, so apparently Kathy found 15,649 where she goes, oh, if I take that from Enrichment Center, I can throw it here and then we're gonna end up positive somewhere. And it's.
Well, I think what it is the more we make, the more they are going to take. That's
But we're not making.
or the more they're going to,
The balance.
Yeah.
but they look at 2022 actual and they continue to, because back in the basement of City Hall, wasn't even close to this amount of
Oh, I'm
money.
sure not.
It was very, very small, because they didn't have this facility to run everything that they could have otherwise, right? So as we start making more and making more and making more, and yes, our expenses are more,
But we're
they just
covering
keep
our
taking more.
expenses, we're not
Exactly.
axing for
Exactly.
anybody.
The one nice thing to look at though, like I said, bring it up at budget, that's the best thing to do, fight for yourselves at budget time, and I will certainly support.
Yeah, thank you.
As best as I can, obviously. I can't sit here and say, you know, if I'm looking at it and saying, okay, what's that 20,000 going towards, Kathy? And she
Well,
tells me.
Jason, the example I gave a long time ago
How about I say,
seems like-
did
is
you-
that
That's,
because we're non-mandatory, I asked, why doesn't the police department expect, well, the police department isn't supposed to be making money, but they write tickets and they do this stuff.
But that doesn't go to the police department.
That's my point.
Those tickets that they write don't go to the police department, they go to the judicial system.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
go into the court system, not into the.
Yeah, but my point only is that the police department is mandatory though. See, we aren't, that's
Right.
what her point is. And the police department should be, well, at that time, like we said, we were arguing about 10,000 because I had suggested that the police department be expected to contribute $10,000. Well, that's unreasonable because they don't do that.
Well,
They pay salaries that are budgeted to the level that are needed to operate the police
right,
department.
and I guess here's my one last little point towards this. The police department, and I'll use them as an example, they haven't increased their staff in, I think Corey said last year, almost 25 years, 30 years, something like that. They actually had to go down last year.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I wasn't suggesting
No,
that,
no,
I was
no,
just
I-
using that as an
I do
Yeah.
get your point, but it's one of those now where it's like we've got our, we've got certain individuals who are like, because we cut a bunch of people last year.
Yeah.
We cut employees. The last thing I want to do as an alderman is cut anybody, honestly. I'd rather cut services than people. Now granted, if you cut the entire Enrichment Center, then you lose 3 wonderful ladies that are working here
Well,
hard all the time.
more importantly,
I'm not-
if we cut the enrichment center, who are they gonna take money from?
Well, I mean, there's a
There's the
valid,
bottom line.
We can't fund you.
there is a valid point to that, but I'm just
You
putting
know,
that
yeah,
out there where it's
yeah,
like, the
exactly.
last thing I want to do is cut any of our public employees because they're doing services for the community. That's the last thing.
And I feel essential services,
Yeah.
essential services, so, but,
Not written in the law, lady. You're not a part of the state of Wisconsin legal definition of a mandatory service.
I know.
I don't know if
I'm gonna
this-
work on that.
I don't know if this is the time or place to talk about fees.
I'm
You
gonna
need
do
to run for
how
the
healthy
legislature.
people are staying in our community, and that is measurable.
Well, I mean, it's budget, so I mean, I don't see
And
why
so,
you
yeah.
couldn't talk about fees
Yeah.
right
We want you to
Okay.
run against Callahan.
Okay,
Yeah.
could I do
Jay and
that?
I'll support you.
Okay,
I got a
so,
lot of signs.
Yeah,
You
I
can put
gotta
a
go.
sign in mine.
I don't know if I'm
I
strong
do
enough.
have to
have we ever thought about charging fees different for county versus city residents? I'm speaking as a tax-paying Merrill City resident.
I-
It happens in the Park and Rec. They charge more for county.
They do not do that anymore because it was hard, it was a hard time for them
Oh.
to do that because quite literally, people would cheat the system.
Yes.
Would you God darn believe that
Yeah.
people are cheating the
We
system?
couldn't do it.
There'd be no way
Yeah.
to truly figure
Thanks,
it out
Gene.
without
Thanks,
the.
Gene.
And just so you know, my mother lives in town. That's why I can swim here. even though I live 14 miles out. I gotta go.
Take care, Gene,
They
thank
don't
you
do
so
that
much.
anymore, huh?
No, they gave that up a few years ago because Dawn and Dan were
Yeah.
literally chasing
Yeah.
people down, and it's like
It was
Yeah.
more policing.
it was more policing
Yeah.
than it's worth. The only thing I could sit here and say, at least we have the funding in
We
here
have
to
it, and we're good
do
for a
it.
couple years,
But I
worry.
would sit there and
I
literally
worry.
say like,
I will, I'll say just what I said here.
especially if the new finance director comes in
Yeah.
Mhm.
and looks and goes, well, why were they taking? And you can make your case of, I just want to be self-sufficient. That's all I want to be.
Yep, yep.
That's it, self-sufficient. Maybe help fund our health insurance, because I know that's god-awful expensive.
Is
But,
it? Oh, sorry.
What if you wanted to spend the $84,000 now? Do you have to have anybody's approval?
Well, I need a bus.
Well, I'm just thinking, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe we need to spend some of that to improve our programming and everything we do here that may
Well-
make more
well, I mean,
money.
but if you sit there and spend though $84,000, right, and then the next year you don't have a,
I'm not saying 84,
No,
but
I
do we
know
need
it-
to use this as an investment into our whole operation here to make it even a better
that
operation?
maybe next year we do something a little bigger, grander.
Well, and our bus is, it's a smaller bus, we could use a bigger bus because our trips are very
Yeah,
popular. We take,
that's true.
and a bus, again, has a timeline and then it starts repair-wise. I mean, so far it's okay. But eventually that will be in our plans, is to have another bus.
What year is that bus?
Okay, so they got it right before I got here in 2014, so 2012, maybe 2013.
11 years? That's-
Yeah,
It's getting
so
up
it's
there.
getting there. Yep, it's getting there. So
I
yes,
would
it's on the radar.
I would almost say that should maybe be a capital investment for next year anyways.
Mhm.
Whether
Yeah,
that comes
it's
out of
getting
the
there.
city budget or it maybe have, street department guys look at it and say,
Oh yeah, Bob Service he's our service guy at the streets, and so, yeah, that's definitely on the radar for another bus. But yeah, so to your point, yes, but again, I would love an endowment or donation for that, because if we keep spending this down and I don't get anywhere with the exact, very easy math I'm going to talk about in the budget, very easy math, 3 years, if we kept doing that, we're, maybe 4 if we're lucky.
I mean, we don't want to be like
We
the
don't want to be
extension where
broke.
we are no more.
Right, exactly,
You know?
exactly.
and it shouldn't be that way because we built this facility in 2017 for a reason.
Yes, for
And it
long
wasn't-
term.
And it was for a
reason.
long-term reason, not
Yes.
for the short-term of, we'll house the enrichment center and
Yeah.
then maybe do something
Right.
else with the building.
Right.
What are you gonna do with this building?
Right, exactly,
Like-
yeah. It was a long-term goal and plan and kind of a forever thing that it would be around,
Well,
so
and
we'll keep fighting for that.
I'll say the same thing I said about some of the county board stuff. It's a whole different regime than what it was all those years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, plans change obviously,
Yes,
but
yes.
the thought process behind those plans should somehow try to remain the same.
Mhm.
And keeping this building running
Mhm.
should still be, for lack of a better term, essential because we made the investment.
Right, right, that's true too.
So just given the time here,
Yeah.
past our, I guess, the only thing I'm wondering, Tammy, beyond what we've talked about, there's other comments, but is there something the committee can do to support your efforts with this next step of talking to the city and the whole budget process? Is there
I think you
anything
would.
we as a committee can?
Tammy, I think you and I can handle that.
I would love for you to be there, just for support, but I don't know how much conversation would be open. Feedback would be open besides the department heads and the council and stuff. So just being in this committee, and it's being recorded about your concerns and your questions and everything, I will bring those to light as well. And I think we'll be good.
And
But
this will be
thank
on
you.
the October agenda further, right?
I don't know if it'll
I
be.
don't know how much we'll progress by that time. We'll have a couple of meetings, so I'll update you on
Right,
the
it'll be
meetings that we've
updated,
been
at least,
in.
that's what I
Yes,
meant.
Yeah,
updated budget, because
Okay.
our Tuesday is our Tuesdays, but that's just capital and everything, so I don't think that's departmental. So we might not be in October. I'm not sure if we'll get to this in, what was the next date? They just sent it today, but.
They sent, I'm looking, there's a possible, budget meeting on the 24th. There's
That's the one I
one.
was thinking.
There's one on the 16th of October. These are all October.
October, yeah, is it 16?
There's a 16th, a
16th.
24th if needed,
If
and then there's
needed,
one
24th.
next Tuesday. And I'm sure we'll end up having the one on the
Yeah.
24th.
I'm thinking so too.
I-
It would be nice if we didn't, but I'm pretty sure we'll have to.
Yeah, it's, I
So we'll have updates though, Jay, to answer your question. So
Okay,
yeah,
good.
I'll keep you updated, and I sometimes will keep you updated even in between our meetings. I'll send an email to the committee just to say, hey, this is what happened, this is where we're at, and before we get to our next meeting.
Anything else on that from anyone before we move on? Okay. ADRC updates?
No updates. Jennifer is not here, and she didn't have any to send.
Okay.
And discussion, we just.
About
We're
this,
discussing.
I will discuss motion to adjourn.
Yes, that sounds good.
Anyone second?
I second.
Okay, very good.
All in
Thank you,
favor, say aye.
everybody.
Aye.
Opposed?
Wonderful